Yo, guys, what's going on? Lucky Cheese 7 is back again to give you guys another Eden Zero manga chapter live stream discussion. And oh my god, I cannot believe I missed out on these 5 chapters. And for anyone wondering why I've been away for so long, well, if you've been catching up with the last couple streams I did, which was on Chainsaw Man, I mentioned how I've been going through a rough time with my family because there's been you know a tragic thing happened with my uncle, and it's kind of set everyone off this course, and I just needed some time away from just from the channel and whatnot. But if my uncle was still here, he would tell me, "Don't stop. Whatever you want to do, set out to do it and never stop." That's one of the few things he would tell me. My grandma, and my grandpa, they would all be sitting here going like, "Look at you, just keep going at it." But to give a short rundown version of the chapters of what I've missed out on, let me just say this: 196. Ultimately, I'm gonna go ahead and give it an amazing. It was an amazing chapter, simply because of what we were dealing with. Because the surprise attack from Kill I thought was pretty cool. Um, on Hermit. And then Wise and Shiki were able to locate Rebecca. We get a nice little moment between Shiki and Rebecca, which I thought was kind of cute. I thought we were gonna get something along the lines of Haru and Ellie from Rave Master, and it's not the same thing, but I can definitely see a little bit of elements there, just a little bit. And then we go back to the battlefield. Hamura is defeated. Get to Ivory and Clown, and it looks like the Shining Stars are defeated by the looks of this particular chapter of 196. Now, I would have given it a pure perfection, but there are a few things that are said in the chapter back, which hindsight kind of brings it down to where things are right now, currently with the next 2 chapters, 197 and 198. But if I were to give a gripe on this when it first came out, I would just say the chapter title itself. The fact that it was called Four Shining Stars Annihilated, it's one of those things where I was like, that's kind of giving that's a huge giveaway on like, all right, what's gonna happen. It's a nitpick. It's a huge nitpick, I would say. If I were to title that chapter, I would have just titled it Annihilation, because then you would have been like, who's the chapter referring to? Because we had no idea. But it it is what it is. But I'll give it an amazing rating. Now, 197 and 198, I want to make an argument case that maybe these two could have been one chapter, because there's not a lot going on in those 2 chapters. Mainly, you get the battle between Hamura and Brigadier, like what happens before Brigadier is ultimately defeated, and then it's more so on Hamura than anything. And it's always great getting some good characterization on Hamura, and that I think is the big highlight of 197 is on Hamura. Is getting that progression, getting the fact that Brigadier's defeated, and you have her and Shiki have some words, and Shiki still being content with where her standing is. It doesn't matter where she's at. It's just a matter of them being friends, which was nice and whatnot. 198, I want to say, kind of went by too fast, and it's more so because the battle with Ivory and Clown, I think, was really good. I just think it was kind of way too fast for me personally. I mean, it was cool seeing Ivory do what she was able to do, healing Hermit from the virus. Um, the biggest highlight for me with 198 was the perspective on life and death. I thought that was really fascinating. Getting Clown's perspective on his view on life, and then getting Ivory's perspective on her way of life, and how they both kind of differ from one another, I thought was astounding. And also, Ivory was able to overwhelm Clown's nightmare. So ultimately, chapters 198 and 197 are ultimately, I would say, great chapters. Not perfect, they're just, great. They've still got their flaws, ultimately. 199, though. 189 is where things take it to a whole nother level. And I do mean on a whole nother level because the revelations we get in 198. I mean, look. So the battle against Dead and Crow still continues, and that's still ongoing even now. So that's one thing. Aknoella sensing justice. I thought was kind of cool, and also kind of shows that justice isn't exactly safe right now. It's a war for Christ's sake. So obviously, and it plus there's so much about Aknoella we don't really know about. So it's one of those things where I'm like, what are we gonna get with Aknoella? Because you could make this a case of like, all right, this could be where Aknoella like, meets her end. I don't think that's what's gonna happen. I feel like what we're gonna get is a quick skirmish between Aknoella and Justice, but I feel like Aknoella's gonna get away, and the ones who are gonna be dealt with, and seemingly right now with Chapter 200, Dead End Crow's gonna be taken care of for sure, and then there's gonna be Ziggy, and I have a huge thing to say about Ziggy when we hit Chapter 200, but I would say those are the two contenders I could see being taken out in this arc, aside from the Dark Stars, if you will. But overall, I would say they're great chapters. 199. I said 198. That was from 198. But 199, like I said, the Battle of Dead and Crow, great. Acnoel Sensing Justice was cool. Here's something I thought was interesting because we know the one of the other Oration Says Galactica was Saint Fire Nox, and that was mentioned. I want to say like towards the end of the Owie War. I want to say it was like shortly after the battle ended. And we get all these names. We have Godak Noella, Dead End Crow, and Saint Fire Nox. Now, what we find out in 198 is that they're all here. They're all on Lindard. And I was like, really? All of the Oration Galactic are here? I mean, look, this Shiki obviously within the 3 year time span got that status, which is amazing. And it's cool to see Shiki get that status. It's great. Elsie's there. Apparently Ziggy's an Oration Galactica member. I don't know if I'm misremembering that, but I was like, "Really? Ziggy?" I was like, I didn't I'm like, either I'm misremembering that or something because yeah, okay, he is a member of the Oration Galactica. When was that ever brought up? I feel like I should know this at the top of my head, but well, actually, let me think about this because look at it this way: because Nero was gone, Drac and Joe was gone too, and Jaguar was defeated. So and that's yeah, that actually would make sense now that I'm thinking about it because the only remaining members you had after the Alley War was Elsie, Godak Noella, and Saint Fire Nox. That's it. Actually, no. I take that back. So Drac and Joe's actually in prison. He's not defeated. He's yeah, he's there. But his status is still pretty much gone though by that standard. But Elsie was there. Saint Fire Nox was there too. Ziggy, she didn't get that status until recently, so no, I have to wonder. I feel like Ziggy being a member is like a recent thing, but yeah, okay. So it's as of the time skip, he's known as that. That makes much more sense. I don't know why that threw me off, but that makes a lot more sense now. So yeah, they're all there, which I thought was really fascinating. And I got me wondering about okay, Saint Fire Knox, like where's she then? And I say she because we all assumed Saint Fire Knox was going to be a dude, but didn't turn out that way. You get that, and as Shiki and Co, Shiki's team, if you will, when they're on their way to where they needed to be, Pino detects a signal, and that leads them to a chamber of of it's not the same thing that happened on Ghost, but you have women, okay, but they're not conscious. They're like stuck in tubes. And you're sitting there thinking, yo, like it looks like they're in back to tanks. If we're going Star Wars here. Yeah, it's kind of like that. Where you're like, what are all these women doing here? And then Y starts recognizing his mother. Hamor recognizes Kerr, and I'm like, oh shit, my mom's here too. And that's when Ziggy just pops. He shows up and says, yeah, all these, they're all mothers. Every human gathered here is a mother. And there exists a particular ether only the mothers of humans have. Which again, shocks Wise, shocks Hamura, Rebecca too. Pino's still like super shocked too. Like he's collecting the ether of the mothers. Shiki, gritting his teeth, Ziggy. And he says, behold. And he brings one of the tanks forward. This one is a mother as well. Saint Fire Knox, the mother of Rebecca. And let me tell you this: when I read this chapter and I got to the end of this page, I was just like, "Yo!" Because let's be fair, outside of Shiki, Rebecca's backstory was very much still a mystery. Because the only thing we got of her backstory is her meeting Happy, and that was it. There was still a lot more to Rebecca we had a little to no idea about. You could kind of argue it was similar to. It's very similar to Ellie in that respect from Rave Master, but it does raise a few questions. Like, whoa, hold up. No, and actually, it's funny I bring that up because and sorry to detour here a bit. We're like 11 minutes and I haven't even gotten to the main chapter, chapter 200. But let's look at Rave Master for a second because, and I bring up Rave Master for a very, very specific reason. Look at chapter 199, okay? 199 of Rave Master. Ultimately, if I can pull it up here, because my volume's all the way off in the other corner now. I don't feel like grabbing it. But yeah, because 199 of Rave Master, spoilers for anyone who hasn't read it yet. But Ellie notices a staff. She grabs it and she claims it's hers. And if you know the story of Rave Master, you know, okay, it belonged to Risha. So when Ellie referred to it as hers, it's like, oh shit. Like you kind of think, okay, you're kind of starting to clue more pieces in. And that's kind of how I view this with Rebecca. It's like, oh shit. Like, now we're gonna get some more stuff on Rebecca. That now brings us over to chapter 200. I know we spent like 14 minutes just talking about like everything, but chapter 199 I had a lot. I had a few things I wanted to discuss. Oh, and also let me just say this: the other reason why I wanted to hold up on the live reactions, besides what was going on with you know the tragedy in my family, I also kind of wait until the official chapters came out. But for some reason, the official chapters are just taking their sweet time. I don't know what's going on. So for the foreseeable future, for the time being, the chapters are going to start. I'm going to start relying on these translations just for the time being, until we get back on course with the official chapters that drop on Tuesdays. But as was the point. So chapter 200 opens up. Saint Fire Knox, one of the Oration Says Galactica. Ziggy's there. She is your mother, Rebecca, which surprises her. You got Shiki's expression. Chapter 200 alternative. And off the gate, you have Shiki going in, attacking Ziggy. Even so, and Rebecca's shocked, like, wait, what are you saying? Why are our mothers here? And this is where we start getting a little bit of a status update on what Ziggy has in mind with all these, all the mothers of our characters. You have Irma Steiner, who is Weiss' mom, and then you got Kurenai, who is Amora's mom. And he talks about how he, was able to gather each of them. And the thing is, most of them are dead. Like, Wise's mom's dead. Kurenai, and it's funny we mentioned Kurenai because Kurenai, last we saw her, she was about to become a slave to someone, and now, it's been a few years. 2 years ago, specifically, Ziggy was able to get his hands on Kurenai, and well, she gone. Which again, kind of sucks for Hamura, but Hamura kind of made her peace with her mom, and to see her mom in this state, it's kind of like, well, shit. It sucks. I'll just say that it just sucks being in that situation. And again, being someone who just lost an uncle and my grandma like just 7 months ago, it's not an easy thing to get through. Hell, I still haven't exactly gotten over stuff that's happened. But you know, then we get Rebecca's mom, Saint Fire Knox, um, Archbishop of the religious organization Saint Fire, and who controls time. So that's a key thing. So we find out from Ziggy that Rebecca's mom had the ability to control time too. So we at least kind of get a sense of like, all right, where did Rebecca's power come from? And then kind of gets me wondering, who's the dad? I'm kind of curious who her mom ended up with because, like, well, to be fair, we didn't really get much intel on Wise's mom either. So it's here or there, if you will. And the reason why, and here's the thing, this is one thing I think is really key for Ziggy because he says that power has was deemed as a threat, and she was recognized as one of the Erashantes Galactica. She was difficult to retrieve indeed. All of her followers were wiped out. Anyone who followed Saint Fire Nog, Ziggy was just like, no, she has something I want. So she going. But here's the key difference. Unlike Hamura and Wise, she's still alive. Saint Fire Knox is still alive. Which shocks Rebecca to a T. Pino's there. So the life signals were coming from her. And then he goes on to talking about Jin and Clean's mother. Uh Rihanna Rutherford. She's dead. And then you get Laguna's mother too, and she's also dead. Uraha Hustard. Yeah, there we go. Uraha Hustard, Laguna's mother, dead. And right when you think we're gonna get something on Shiki, because you get everybody. You get Laguna, you get Clean, you get Wise, Hamura, Rebecca. You're thinking, yo, we're gonna get the other mothers too. We're gonna get some intel on Shiki and what his whole ordeal is. And Ziggy just flat out says, I regret to tell you, your mom's not here. And Hamor basically points us out, like, but why are our mothers here? And Ziggy goes on to say, the retrieval of your mothers was merely to set an example. Any mother would have sufficed. There is a particular ether that only mothers possess, the power to create life. Collecting it will unlock the way to mother herself. That's the whole reason why he has them on these, in these tubes and whatnot, is because they have the ability, to reproduce, and through that, you could kind of say that could kind of be his gateway and his key to figuring out where mother is. The big goal we've been setting up for Eden Zero since the beginning of the story. Which again catches Sheik's attention, saying mother, and we get his motives too, because Ziggy's motives before we've known it was about wiping out humanity, burning it all to crisp for you know robots to be the dominant species, if you will, if we can even call them that. But we get something else too, and why he's persistent on finding mother, to bury all humanity, mother. The source of all life must not exist. He will seek out mother. He says, "I will seek out mother and destroy her," which is interesting because again, we know based on events prior to him reawakening, something happened to Ziggy. We don't know what it is, but he was traveling back to Granbell with a baby Shiki, and he was raising him like it was all fine and whatnot. So something definitely happened, and that's something we get a little bit into with this chapter. We kind of start getting a little bit of a semblance here because again, even with that said, with these shocked faces, Weiss, Rebecca, Hamura, Happy, Pino, Shiki says, "I'm gonna stop you. It all ends here for you." As Shiki's about to go through, Ziggy opens up a wormhole, and ultimately, let's just say, he takes Shiki away, which is what Rebecca's like, Shiki. But Ziggy's just like, yeah, Shiki and I just need to tap a talk. Pardon the intrusions. But first, I have something good to tell you. And like I said, Ziggy right now, to be fair, anytime Ziggy shows up, there's always something. There is always something this man has to say. Whenever he shows up, some shit goes down. And this one's no exception because we have a huge host of revelations that come up. Now, this is the big thing with Ziggy because he says the center of Linder you've been after is right here. A best of luck with your Operation Planning Eater. How is Ziggy supposed to know that? And that's something everyone kind of points out. It's like, wait, where did Shiki goes? What Rebecca says, and Pino's like, he was teleported to another location. And Happy's like, how does Ziggy know about Operation Planning Eater? An information leak, inconceivable. And why it says like, so there's a turncoat. Enough, Wise. There's another matter to attend to. If the chronophage is summoned, and then you're looking at all the mothers here, Wise's mother, Hamura's mother, and now Rebecca's mother, and you're seeing Rebecca, and she's at a loss for words because all this time she's been thinking she's alone, and now her mother's there, like right before her. And now she's gonna like, I can't do it. And here's the thing: if I were in Rebecca's situation, I'd kind of feel the same way. Like, I don't know what to do. And before we get any more of that, let's just say we cut back all the way back to Shiki and Ziggy. And this was something that was hinted at, by the way. I want to say in the not the late the what's the latest one? I think it's the latest volume. Hiro mentioned something where he said there is going to be a confrontation of sorts between Shiki and Ziggy within the Kaede War. Like that, we are things are going to be settled here, which I thought was kind of interesting because I was like, huh. And I know I've been bringing up the Eden's One arc a lot, but I say that in the sense that based on that arc, you would assume, okay, Ziggy would be the prima villain for the remainder of the series. That's the thing you would assume based on Eden's One. But since Hiro talked about this being like the end all be all of Ziggy and Shiki as far as their confrontation goes, that really gets me to wonder. And truth be told, it's not the first time Hero's done this. Because, well, let's look back at Rave Master. You had King, who was a pretty big deal to Haru because that was connected to his father. Now, ultimately, King didn't last as long as Ziggy, but he did have a presence. Ultimately, the final straw for the last antagonist of Rave Master for the rest of the story was um Lucia. He was the prima villain for the remainder of the story. And that's what I kind of thought we were gonna get here with Eden Zero was that okay, the prima villain for the remainder of the story is gonna be Ziggy. But that doesn't look like we're getting that based on just that comment Hero made. That Ziggy and Shiki, that's gonna be settled here. And truth be told, it kind of also makes sense too, because we do know there's a Yukino cosmos out there. And that cosmos was still yet to be explored. And we know when you combine the cosmoses together, it makes the Grand Shiki cosmos, which is something Holy mentioned. And even she kind of, kind of teases that, hey, is that really a coincidence? Which here's the thing, when we know Hiro and his style of storytelling. Coincidences just don't happen off the fly. That much is true. But still, having said that, you see these two confront one another. And it's the first time in a while where we have Shiki addressing Ziggy as Grandpa. So, we're settling this one-on-one, Grandpa? Of course. That is my mission. They both stare at each other. Magimek, gravity fist. Now, here's the thing. I know there's this big popular theory people have been talking about for the longest time. What if Ziggy is actually Shiki from the future? And I want to harken back on that because it is something Hero did reveal that we are gonna get some secrets with Ziggy in this arc. What that entails, I think we're gonna get that soon because it's interesting that they have that. They say the same attack patterns, and I know some people are gonna be like, does that lead credence to theory? Yeah, you could say it leads credence to theory. I would make a case that Ziggy is the one who taught Shiki, uh, ether gravity. So all of the attacks, you know, it's pretty much from master to student. It's the same. When you learn stuff from your master, you would kind of get the same thing if that makes any sense. So you get that the level of the scope of the attack is actually just incredible. How it goes down. Shiki instantly jumps into overdrive, headbutts Ziggy with this amazing double page spread, I should say. And that looks incredible. Some people could say, it looks a little rough. I actually think it looks really, really stunning. It looks amazing to see. Just that collision. But that goes down, and Ziggy says, "That's my boy, Shiki. You've grown stronger, haven't you?" Shiki's still going in for the punch, but Ziggy's still like pulling all the stops, using his knee, using his hand. Interestingly enough, keep in mind, and I'm just noticing this now too, but Shiki's eye, okay, keep remember, his eye's artificial, so it's not an actual eye. Which, by the way, is interesting because look at Ziggy. This next panel here, right eye, you see a pupil. The left eye, you don't. Why is that? So, this is one who has gone outside the moment of time. That's what Ziggy says. He's like, so this is one who has gone outside the moment of time. And Shiki's just like, well, what are you talking about? And I love what Hiro did here because I know this part in particular has been on a lot of our minds ever since chapter 4 dropped back 4 years ago. And it's crazy to think that now. 4 years ago on chapter 4, on the big milestone chapter, we jump 20,000 years in the future, much like with what happened at the end of chapter 4. You see these two guys, they see, Rebecca's BQ that says Eden 0. And they catch a signal like beep, 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 beep. Impossible. The the signal, it's a life signal. Survival of the male specimen confirmed. He's still alive. So given that, the fact that they said the male specimen confirmed, he's alive. I know this can pretty much allude to anybody. I think it's pretty safe to say. I think it's safe to say it's Sheik. I want to say that for certain because again, go back to what Ziggy says right here. So this is one who has gone outside the moment of time. And again, I wish we had the official translations here because oh my god, that this dialogue itself can be real interpreted in a lot of ways. But I do think with the way how Hero's paneling this, I do feel like it is. I know I'm contradicting myself here by saying this, but it does seem like the Shiki or Ziggy being Shiki from like the future, an alternate universe, if you will. That does seem like it's apparent now. It does seem like it's more viable. And the whole fact of the 20,000 years later thing is interesting because, again, the fact that they detect the life signal and they specifically say male specimen confirmed, he's alive. I'm thinking, yo, it has to be Shiki. Like, there's no one else you could think of that's there. But what's also interesting is if you look in the background, you do see the ships. You see the Eden Zero ship, and like I don't know about you guys. I was getting like Pillar of Autumn vibes from Halo. Like if you see what happened to the Pillar of Autumn at the end of Halo, like It's kind of like that, except this one's like just drifting in space. Actually, not even that. My bad, not the Pillar of Autumn. It reminds me of, the Forward Unto Dawn. Uh, End of Halo 3. Ship was ripped in half. Start of Halo 4, same ship. It's like just drifting in space. So it's the same ship, actually. But it looks like, it's been like split in two and whatnot. So definitely looks like it went through some hell within the 20,000 years that have happened. But again, this is 20,000 years later. The fact that they're getting a life signal out of the male specimen of all things, I'm just like, Shiki? Again, I could be very much jumping the gun here, but I just thought that was fascinating. I really, really thought that was like super, super fascinating to just get like, yo, what up? We here, like, okay. Traces of Eden Zero, 20,000 years later. Who is a survivor of the desolate universe? And it's a desolate universe. Remember, if we go back to Universe 1, Shiki's dead. Jack and Joe, you know, shot him straight. Gone. And I forget what Master Noah mentioned, but we're like in a totally different universe now. So this is definitely one of the more alternative universes. Which, again, going back to Rebecca's nightmare, when she sees Shiki being so cold about Happy, what's a dead cat gonna do about it? So makes me wonder. It really, really makes me wonder. And the fact that the chapter is able to make me do that, just sit here and just speculate on this, it really does show the quality in Hero's writing, and it's always been prevalent too. I know people want to say, well, "Yeah, but fairy tale." I understand that. I'm a different breed, though. I was with Hero all the way back from Rave Master, so I've seen the rise and fall, and you could argue this is like the new rise now of Hiro Mashima in terms of his style of storytelling. And let's be fair, when you look at Fairy Tale, you could tell, and this is straight from his mouth, there was no plan on Fairy Tale. And when you compare how he's tackling Eden Zero compared to Fairy Tale and how he tackled Rave Master compared to Fairy Tale, there's a huge contrast. There's a super huge contrast in his style of storytelling, I would say. But the thing is, he has the story beats planned out for Eden Zero. It's just connecting the dots on how to get there is what's different here compared to Rave Master. Because Rave Master, he knew. He knew exactly how the dots are going to be connected here. This one, it's a bit more like, it's like, like getting like bullet points. You have like these beats where you're like, okay, we get here and we have this. We gotta get to these checkpoints. How we get to those checkpoints is a mystery. But that's having a story plan with checkpoints, I would take any day than, writing a story on the fly with nothing in sight, I would say. But I'm gonna go ahead and give this chapter pure perfection. I'll say that right now. It's a pure perfection chapter. I really like what we got. If I want to nitpick something, okay, and this is gonna be super, super, super nitpicky. I think a little bit we could have gotten like a couple more punches and whatnot from Ziggy and Sheik. And I mean I know it lasts a few pages, but like Like 1 or 2 extra pages I think would have been cool. But then again, Hero's always been known for his fast pacing, and again, that's just me super nitpicking on this. But okay. No, actually, I got a proper nitpick. Maybe we could have gotten a little bit more on the Dragon Joe, the Dead End Crow fight. We could have gotten a little bit more on the Dead End Crow fight. I would say they would have been kind of cool to see a little bit more perspective on what's been going on there because we didn't get anything from them. Not that it was a bad thing, but if I'm nitpicking, that is a huge nitpick. So overall, like I said, chapter 200 is pure perfection. Overall rating on all these chapters. Because let's look at it this way. You get amazing from chapter 196. Great and great for chapters 197 and 198. Amazing plus for 199. And then you get pure perfection for chapter 200. So overall, I think within these 5 chapters, you get an amazing read. Maybe arguably amazing plus, but hey, it's something to say. And also, I just want to point this out too, because we're on chapter 200. I want to address this. When it came to Rave Master, and I know I mentioned this earlier, the big thing with Rave Master was that connection between Ellie and Russia with the staff. That was a big monumental moment for Rave Master. Was getting a little bit more into like, okay, what's that connection between Russia and Ellie? And ultimately kind of giving more credence to the theory, what the story was alluding to, and that Ellie is actually Russia in Rave Master. Now, in Fairy Tale, it's interesting because I had to actually go back and look at this. But chapter 200 of Fairy Tale was the very first appearance of Zeref. And him talking about, like, oh, is it finally time to meet you now, too? That's one of the ones I would say you could kind of argue didn't really have too much buildup per se. But there are like little breadcrumbs where you're like, okay, you can kind of get something out of it because the Book of Zerefs, the Demon of Zerefs, and then finally chapter 200, you introduce Zeref and his ties to Natsu. So it's like, that's a good tease. And now here with Eden Zero, again, it more so kind of ties similarly with Ellie in that with Rebecca, she finds her mother, and we get a revelation on that. But you can kind of argue this ties back to Shiki too, because, well, this chapter is hinting more and more at the fact that, yeah, Ziggy and Shiki are more connected than we realize. And maybe Ziggy could, in fact, be an alternate future Shiki. A Shiki who's kind of gone down the dark side, if you will. And if you guys remember the Darth Vader comic, a very, very famous part of the story, which is where you have Anakin and Vader like actually confront one another in his inner mind, which I thought was really cool. I could see that being a case here, without a shadow of a doubt. Now, 100-Year Quest, there's no chapter 200, but there was a chapter 100. Chapter 100, Ignia like shows back up, and it's like, it's like, haven't seen the last of me, have you? So, in terms of milestones, Hero knows what to do in terms of like the big milestone chapters. Technically, you can make an argument to say when it comes to Eden Zero, the big milestone was Ziggy showing back up. So there's that. But at this point, God, I'm just rambling on. We're nearly almost an hour in, but let me just say it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun talking about Eden Zero. I like the direction of where the series is going, and I'm curious. I'm really, really curious where Hero's going to go with this confrontation between Ziggy and Shiki. Again, does seem more apparent now that Ziggy could be, a more corrupted Shiki in the future. It seems like that. But I'm also really curious about the 20,000 years later thing, the fact that we're getting a life signal, which again I think is obviously gonna be Shiki. We just gotta wait and see. We just gotta wait and see what happens in chapter 201. And for anyone who's curious, this would be, I want to say, the sixth chapter in the volume. I think, because volume 22 I know is like already finished. Like the chapter of those continents are done. We're gonna get that volume in August in Japan. So we're currently on volume 23, and volume 23 should end on chapter 203. So there's only three chapters left before this volume ends. And now, I don't personally think we'll finish up the fight between Ziggy and Shiki because it's been so built up. I mean, then again, Hero is super known for his fast pacing, so we could still get that. But I feel like with the 20,000 years later, the stuff Ziggy's been holding on and the secrets, those revelation thing, we're probably gonna get that either within these three chapters or at least sometime within volume 24. And that could definitely lead into the conclusion of this arc. So, like I said, guys, the chapter rating for chapter 200 is pure perfection. Overall rating on these five chapters as a whole is amazing, arguably amazing plus. And aside from that, guys, that's pretty much it. I'm Lucky7. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more Eden Zero. And I promise you guys, when the next Eden Zero chapter drops, you will definitely catch a live reaction. Live reaction. A live stream discussion. And tell them, guys, take care. Peace.